What's up you guys? Welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. So at the beginning of the summer, I made like a little summer reading list of all of the books that I wanted to read this summer. I made a whole like setting the vibes for summer video, and a part of that video was talking through my whole summer reading list. So if you are interested in going to see that first, I'll make sure to have it linked up here and down in the description. I am fully a mood reader, and so these were very like cutesy, lighthearted, easy read, feel good kind of summer fiction books. Throughout the summer, I read these books and then ranked them from 0 to 5 stars on Goodreads, which I will also have linked down in the description if you're interested in following along with what I am reading. I would love to have some more bookish friends. As with pretty much everything else in my life, my ranking scale is pretty thought out. It's not an arbitrary what I feel kind of thing. So I've never given anything 0 stars. 1 star to me means that I did not finish. 2 stars to me would just be like, I did finish it, but I honestly really hated it. I would never recommend it to anybody. 3 stars is just like, it was an average good read, it made me feel good, but I'll probably forget it in a couple months. 4 stars is gonna be like, that was a really, really good book, but it's not like the best books that I've ever read. And then I reserve my 5-star books for like, wow, that had an impact on my life and I loved it. I will start off by saying that none of the books that I read this summer did I hate. My least favorite book on this list is just coming in at a 3 star, so just that like average, I'm probably gonna forget about it kind of ranking. So in order from least to greatest, here are the 12 books I read this summer. So coming in at number 12 is Attached at the Hip by Christina Riccio. So in this book, we meet the main character, and she is a fitness influencer with her sister, but she's kind of feeling like she's been following everybody else's directions for her life up to this point. She's not really in love with her long-term boyfriend anymore, and she's just like ready to do something with her life. So she applies to go on Survivor, but when she's approved to go on the show, they don't tell her that it's like a dating spin-off version of the show. And so she gets there and she's literally tied by like a rope attached at the hip to the other contestants, one of which is supposed to be like a romantic interest, and one of them is her high school crush. So she has to like navigate making alliances, getting to know the other contestants, kind of falling for some of the other contestants around this high school boyfriend, and she just kind of has to navigate everything that comes with that. This book only got a 3-star rating for me because it was honestly just like a meh book in my opinion. I probably could have ranked it lower, but like in my scale, there's not a lot of leeway between a 2-star and a 3-star read. I kind of wish I almost need to like revamp it and then hold the books that I'm making a 5-star up to a 6-star kind of thing, but I digress. So I never really got overly invested in any of the characters. I didn't really relate to them. I never really liked the main character enough to like root for her. I wanted more like either romantic tension or drama or both that just like never really came. And don't even get me started on how it ended. I probably wouldn't recommend anybody waste their time reading this book, but if it sounds interesting to you, I would love to hear your thoughts. Coming in at number 11 is Bad Summer People by Emma Rosenblum. This was actually a book not on my original summer reading list. By kind of the end of July, I realized I had made it through most of my reading list and I was just gonna have like a month that I needed to read some other books. So this was one of them. So this book opens and you realize that there has been a murder, and then it goes back several months for you to kind of get the beginning of the story, and you're meeting all of these different characters of people that normally go to this island. It's very like giving the Hamptons vibes, but it's specifically Fire Island, not the Hamptons. So all of these people are like super rich, but then you also have like the tennis professional, you have the old ladies of the island, the younger people of the island, all of them interacting, some people sleeping with some people's husbands, somebody sleeping with a tennis pro. You just like see them all doing their bad things. And so you never really root for anybody, but eventually there is a murder and then the fallout after it. I was really enjoying this book until we got to the ending. I liked getting to learn all of the different details from everybody's different perspectives, and that this person knows one thing, this person knows another, but nobody knows what everybody else knows. But the ending was so anticlimactic. I feel like the murder was like barely even in the book. Like, what was the point? point. It was really good writing, but I was left disappointed. If it had just been about all the bad things that these people had done, I think it would have been really interesting, but I just kept waiting for it to like get to that murder point and then just kind of like shoot off, but it just never really did. So that being said, I did just keep it at a 3-star. I, again, don't know if I necessarily would recommend it, but it was good enough. Number 10 is Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan, and I ended up rating this a 3.25. I actually ended up reading all 3 of Annabelle Monaghan's books this summer, and this was the first one that I read. So in this book, we have a woman who's in like her 40s. Her mom had just died like 2 years previously, and she's also just went through a divorce. She kind of decides that she might be ready to get out there and meets a guy at the dog park who turns out to be her best friend's brother. So they kind of like start dating, and she just gives it a try with him. They have to kind of navigate. He's not from in town, he's just visiting, so that kind of thing. I thought that this was like a really sweet book. I feel like the main character reminded me a lot of my mom and her story a little bit, which was kind of fun. But because of that, it did kind of make it hard for me to relate to the main character and kind of like insert myself into the story. It was a very sweet book, really, really good writing, but not quite what I was looking for. Number 8 and 9 kind of go hand in hand, and they kind of are ranked together because 9 is just an extension of 8's story. So this is 28 Summers by Ellen Hilderbrand, and then number 9 would be The Sixth Wedding by Ellen Hilderbrand. So the premise of this story is that we have Mallory and Jake. Jake is Mallory's brother's best friend, and they meet for kind of like a Labor Day weekend on Nantucket when Jake comes home with Mallory's brother. Kind of one thing leads to another, and they end up being the only ones left on the island and kind of start this little romance. And they agree that they will be coming back to the island same time next summer, every year after kind of thing. And so you see them continue to come for Labor Day weekend year after year after year, even after they get married, have kids, progress through their lives without one another and only see each other on Labor Day. I thought this concept was so captivating. I wasn't really sure how to feel about it, but reading it, the book left me wanting more. I felt like I wanted more drama, more romance. It just kind of fell flat for me. This was my first Ellen Hilderbrand book, and I really liked her writing style, so I would be interested in reading more of her books, but this one just wasn't quite what I had hoped it would be. And the book started off with the ending, and so you kind of know where it's going, but by the time we got there and then got the little bit of how the ending actually went, I was so disappointed. Which brings me to book number 9, which is The Sixth Wedding, also by Ellen Hilderbrand. This is just kind of a glorified extension of 28 Summers. It is marketed as 28 Summers number 1.5, and truly had this just been the ending of 28 Summers, it probably would have bumped my ranking up higher. I really did enjoy 28 Summers. I ended up giving it a 3.5 rating. But I feel like because The Sixth Wedding was just an extension of that, it also just got a 3.5 rating. I liked getting to see what happened to the other characters at the end of the last book. I'm pretty sure that The Sixth Wedding came out like 3 years after 28 Summers was published, and so truthfully, had it just been like the end of the original book, I feel like it would have been better for everyone, but I'm not the author, so I don't know why she chose to do it that way. Number 7 is Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. This was another book that was not originally on my summer reading list. The other 2 Annabelle Monaghan books were, but this one I hadn't really heard about, and I only read it because my mom really liked it, and we both had liked summer romance, so we decided that we would read Nora Goes Off Script too. But the premise of this one was really cute. So we meet Nora, who is a screenwriter. She kind of writes like typical romance Hallmark kind of movies, but she just got left by her husband, and he left her kids, and it's kind of a deadbeat, honestly. And she writes a movie about him leaving, and it ends up getting produced, and it's gonna be this really big movie. And the movie is gonna be shot at her house. And so the actors come to her house, and she kind of ends up falling for the lead guy who is playing her husband. And so you kind of just see all of the emotional baggage from her divorce and falling for this guy and just all of the things that happen through that scenario. I ranked this one at a 3.5. I really liked the writing. Again, the premise of the story was so cute, but again, it was hard for me to relate to being a 40-something woman who had just been divorced with kids. But like I said, a really good story, really good writing. I would recommend reading this one. Number 6 is The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. I ranked this book a 3.5. I thought it was really cute, but I did listen to this one on audiobook, and so the narrator kind of shifted my experience, I guess. It was kind of meh narration, and it kind of dropped the rating for me, I think. So in this book, we meet 18-year-old Meredith, and she has grown up going to Martha's Vineyard with her family. Her family has like a whole plot of land that they kind of all live on. But last summer her sister died, and so that has kind of shifted her experience being able to go back to the vineyard. She is planning to go back to the vineyard because her cousin Sarah is getting married, but right before they go back, her long-term boyfriend dumps her. And so you can like imagine the emotional state that this girl is in. Her family has this tradition of playing assassin every summer, and so they're doing that as like a wedding weekend kind of activity, and her target ends up being one of the groomsmen that she's kind of been flirting with on the island. So you kind of just see how the week progresses. Lots of little flirting, but also lots of like trauma healing. And for that reason, I did like this book. It did feel like very multifaceted. It was lighthearted while also tackling some hard things. When I read the summary of this book, nowhere does it say that this is an 18-year-old girl, and so like I kind of had to shift my expectations as to like what this was. It was very much like girl out of high school getting ready to go to college, and just like your mental state at that point is so different than like I was expecting it to be, like mid-20s kind of thing. And so I definitely had to shift my expectations, but once I did, like it was definitely a cute little summer story, a good amount of tension, a good amount of drama, made you feel good, but also just like a really heartwarming story too. Number 5 is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren, and this was like the epitome of what a 4-star book should be to me. So we have our two main characters that met sometime during college, and they decided just to like marry each other because they needed student housing basically. So they do the school thing, they go on their merry ways, and then the guy comes back like 3 years later and basically needs them to still be married. Due to a clause in his grandfather's will, he needs to have been married for 5 years to kind of get his trust fund, and his whole family still thinks that they are married, and he now needs to go to his sister's wedding, which happens to be on this private island somewhere in the middle of the ocean. So the girl agrees that she will be paid to be the fake wife, go on the trip, do everything that he needs to, and then it's like revealed that his family is like very messed up because of just how rich they are. So you see them kind of work through all of these problems. Maybe they end up falling in love. It was just like the perfect amount of drama and detail, and I love Christina Lauren's writing. If you haven't read Love in Other Words, I would highly recommend reading that. But also there were just like a lot of aspects that were not on the back of the book that I did not see coming that just like really added to the book. It was just like a really good 4-star read in my opinion. Coming in at number 4 is Funny Story by Emily Henry, and this was another just like 4-star read for me. This was actually the first book that I read on this reading list, and it feels like it has been ages since I read this book. So long story short, we've got this girl who is in love with a boy. Boy turns out to be in love with his best friend. Best friend is also with another boy. And so boy B and girl A end up living together, and then you just kind of see their life progress. It's very complicated, very chaotic, but very good. Very heartwarming, a little spicy, but fun. It definitely wasn't my favorite Emily Henry book that I've read. It's probably maybe 4th on the list if we're being completely honest, but I did like it. It did have very just like heartwarming energy. It was a good summer read. I also did really like there was like a family element, especially from the guy's side, and I don't feel like we always get that in books, and so I thought that that was really interesting to kind of navigate through some of his family trauma, let him work that out before he can be like a healthy partner, which I think is a really important lesson. I think that it's not always talked about, the way that our family trauma can affect our relationships going forward, and so I liked seeing that in kind of a lighthearted book tackling a little bit of a tougher topic. Coming in at number 3, we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and I ranked this a 4.25. I found the premise of this little love story very interesting. Basically, we have a boy and a girl with the same curse that they date people, they break up with those people, and then those people go on to find their soulmates. And so they say, what if we date each other, break up, and then maybe we'll find our soulmates? It's obviously just supposed to be a fling, just for the summer, so you see the progression of the fling move on as they progress towards maybe actually falling for each other. Throughout this book, they're also like dealing with very complicated family stuff on both sides. So I do feel like there's kind of an element of like trauma bond and like working through things together, but also like in a very healthy way. This has been my favorite Abby Jimenez book so far. I read Yours Truly and I liked this one better. I really liked the main guy. I really liked just the way he was so willing to show up and kind of give full force into the relationship and be very forward and be very just like straight up with what he wanted and what he was willing to do. Also, there are a couple family twists that I just like did not see coming. It was definitely a feel-good book, and it made me want to go back and read the first book out of the series. So it's a 3-part series, and I've read 2 and 3, and they kind of read as standalone books, but if you go back and read all of them, you see bits and pieces of the people from the previous books in the other books. So I kind of want to go back and read the first one so I have the full picture of the whole series, but who knows when that's actually going to happen. Probably not in the fall. My number 2 book is Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan, and let me tell you, I just loved this book, and that's why it got a 4.5 rating for me. So we meet our main character, and she's coming back to Long Island Beach with her now fiance, where her family has kind of a beach house there, and they're starting to do some wedding planning, but of course she runs into her like high school love affair, who also was like one of her best friends growing up. And let me tell you, that is one of my favorite tropes. I love a childhood friends to lovers to like second chance romance kind of thing. Nothing is better in my opinion. This is also like a dual timeline kind of book, so you get to see what is happening in her life now, and then also like the years of her and this other boy kind of growing up together and falling in love, and just seeing what happened that made them fall out and the trauma that she went through after that. And I also really love a dual timeline kind of book. I really like to get to see all of the different details from the now to the then, and getting just like the full picture of what has happened in a book. And I really feel like this book does a really great job with that. Unlike the other Annabelle Monaghan books, the main character in this book is in her like earlier 20s, and so it was a little bit easier for me to relate to this book, unlike the other ones. It was just the perfect conglomeration of a little bit messy but lighthearted, you feel good. I really liked it, and I think you should read it. And my number 1 book is This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune, and I did give this a 5-star rating. I love Carly Fortune books. I feel like she just has really nailed the formula in her books. They're often a dual timeline, which I just told you all the reasons why I love that, and they often include a second chance romance. So you put those together and you've got some of my very favorite things. So in this book, we have our main character visiting her college best friend at her family's house on Prince Edward Island, and they've kind of been doing the same thing for like the past 5 years. They're back here because her best friend is about to get married in Toronto, but she kind of just had like a freak out and wanted to get away to their family house. So like I said, there's a dual timeline, and when it jumps back to the first summer there 5 years ago, we meet the main character. She meets this boy, They hit it off, they kind of have a one-night stand, and then she realizes that this is the best friend's brother. And one of the stipulations of being able to go on these trips was that she was not to fall in love with the brother. So over the course of the book, we go through both timelines, both present time, where we see our main character trying to help her best friend figure out why she's freaking out about the wedding stuff. But then we also see all of the summers previously of her interacting with this boy that she very clearly loves, and he loves her, but neither of them are on the same page. So it's lots of tension, lots of like forbidden romance, lots of like hiding things. It's just a good recipe for a feel-good kind of book. I did find it interesting that while there was more of a dual timeline in this book, it wasn't going back super far. It was just like the 5 summers previously, which is a different element than the other Carly Fortune books. If you have never read Every Summer After by Carly Fortune, that might be my favorite book. I just loved it. It just felt so good. I think I legitimately read it in like 6 hours. I can't recommend that one enough. But this one definitely gave it a run for its money. It was just another one of those like 5-star reads. I'm gonna think about it all the time. It was just a great amount of tension and romance and those like feel-good tingles. I would definitely recommend reading it. However, Every Summer After, I think still holds that #1 spot for me. So with that, that is the 12 books that I read this summer, ranked from least to greatest. I would love to hear if you read any of these books, what you thought of them. If you're planning to read any of them, please let me know. Keep me updated on your reading journey. Now it's time to get working on my fall reading list, because fall is here and I like to do a little like fantasy fall kind of thing. I last year did fantasy fall, and that was to kick it off. I read Fourth Wing, and that was just like the best book that I read all of last year. So I'm definitely excited to see what other fantasy books I'm planning to read. I've got definitely some in mind, so maybe we'll walk through my fall reading list in an upcoming video. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. I would love to hear if you enjoyed this little like bookish content, if you would like to get some more bookish content on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe to my page and turn on post notifications so that you're notified whenever I'm posting, typically Tuesdays at 10 a.m. And I will see you next week.